Hi, today we're going to concentrate the Lils go exploring. Chapter 6. It was early morning. The Lils were all set to begin the exploring trip to find out what happened to Grandpa Lil. The sun had just come up. He was burning off the fog that formed during the night near the brook. Granny Lil stood on the deck at the front of the boat. She wanted to be sure and see everything. "I'm glad I named the boat Discoverer," she said. "Good name," said Uncle Pete. He stood with Lucy near the entrance drink. He was wearing a sailor's cap and a life jacket made from a crock that had been hollowed out. All the Lils wore these life jackets. It was one of Grandpa Lil's ideas. Mr. Lil was in the cabin fusing over baby Betsy. "She didn't get enough sleep," said Mrs. Lil. "She'll be cranky all day." Mr. Lil sat into the captain's chair at the wheel. He looked at the sky. "I hope Dinky gets here soon," he said. "We should be on our way." In the water neighborhood was the submarine raft. The Lils had tied leaves and wings to the raft. They hoped that any big person or animal who saw it would think it was just a piece of driftwood. Tom and Uncle Nick were to travel on ahead of the boat, the submarine raft. If they saw any danger in the water, they would signal it to the boat. That might give the other Lils enough time to hide the boat along the shore. Suddenly a shout went up from the submarine raft. "There they are!" Everyone looked up. Cousin Dinky and Della zoomed over, head in their blue and white glider. Della waved from the back seat. The glider circled the boat once and flew off down the brook. Everyone on the boat ran to the side and looked over the railing. The submarine raft was already headed down the brook. Uncle Nick worked with a long pole trying to keep going straight. Tom held a styrofoam pail made from a wooden ice cream spoon. "Let's go!" cried Mr. Lil. "We don't want them to get too far ahead." Uncle Pete and Lucy pulled the anchor. The Discoverer began to drift down the brook. Uncle Pete called to Mr. Lil. "Steady as you go! Will, there's a big rock on our starboard side." Mr. Lil laughed. "I see it. You mean it's on our right side, don't you?" he asked. "Hey, sir," said Uncle Pete. "Okay," Mr. Lil said. The tiny man turned the wheel hard to the left. The boat swung slowly over that way. They missed the rock. "Gee," said Lucy, "it's a good boat, isn't it?" "Little bridge ahead," Mr. Lil called. Sure enough, the Discoverer was moving quickly toward the low footbridge. "There's plenty of room," said Uncle Pete. "That bridge is 2 feet above the water." Lucy looked up. "What about the radio antenna?" she asked. "Oh," said Uncle Pete. He yelled, "Well, the antenna!" Mr. Lil dropped the wheel. He ran to pull down the antenna, and just in time, too. As the boat went under the bridge, a rubber tire stuck in the brook ahead. "Sang out, Uncle Pete." Mr. Lil ran back to the wheel. He turned it hard to the left. "This isn't easy," he said. "We would better keep our eyes open." "You try and keep your eyes on what lies ahead, Will," Uncle Pete said. "I'll take care of everything else." "I have lost sight of the submarine raft," Mr. Lil said. "It's gone around the bend up ahead." "Here you come, Cousin Dinky and Della," Lucy yelled. The tiny glider came sailing along as it passed over the boat. A small package fell. A parachute opened above the package. Uncle Pete grabbed a pole with a fish hook on the end. He looked the parachute out of the air and drifted down alongside of the boat. "Perfect," said Mr. Lil. "Our first message." Uncle Pete opened the package. Lucy and Granny Lil came over to hear the message. "Stop immediately," read Uncle Pete. "Children playing near brook ahead." By this time, the boat was almost to the bend in the brook. Mr. Lil stared into the shallow water along the side of the brook. The tall grasses there made a good hiding place. Uncle Pete pushed the anchor over the side. They could hear children's voices neighboring. Mr. Little climbed from the boat. "Come on," he said. "Let's see what's going on." Nick and Tom are around that bend somewhere. Uncle Pete and Lucy followed Mr. Little. They ran along the shore to the bend in the brook. Mr. Little crouched down behind the bear can. He held his finger to his lips. There, a few feet ahead, some children were throwing rocks into the water. "Let's break it to pieces!" shouted one boy. He threw a large stone. The water splashed. A piece of driftwood spun around in the water. "I'll get it this time!" yelled another boy. He raised an arm to throw. "Watch this!" "Oh my goodness!" said Mr. Little. "It's a submarine raft!" Uncle Pete said. "Those nasty brats were trying to hit it with rocks." "Oh, poor Tom," said Lucy. "Back to the boat," said Mr. Little. "I've got to rescue Tom and Nick." "We have got to rescue Tom and Nick." He grabbed Lucy's hand and ran. Uncle Pete limped after them as fast as he could. They climbed around the discover. "Get out the weapons chest, Uncle Pete," said Mr. Little. "Lucy, you and your mother and Granny lift up the anchor. I've got to get going." In a few moments, the boat was moving forward. Uncle Pete opened the weapons chest. "What now?" he asked. "Send up one of those firecracker rockets," said Mr. Little. "And it's so that it will go over the children's heads and behind them. Let's hope they run back to see what it is. Then we can slip through to find Nick and Tom." Uncle Pete got one of the rockets and a match. "Lucy, you'll have to hold the bottle just as I tell you," he said. "Hurry!" said Mr. Little. "We're coming to the bend in the brook. They'll see us." The bottle was too heavy for Lucy. Granny Little and Mrs. Little helped her go in the right way. Uncle Pete lit the rocket and dropped it into the bottle. Whoosh! The rocket flew high up into the sky. It arced over the children's heads, leaving a trail of smoke. The big children didn't see the rocket. It fell toward the ground behind them. Bang! "Hey, what was that?" "A firecracker. Someone shooting firecrackers. Let's see who it is." The children dropped the rocks and ran away from the brook. The discoverer came around the bend. It floated toward the place where the children had been. But the submarine raft was nowhere to be seen. Bye.